Hello and welcome to Somerset Highlander. So today is Friday the 26th of April 2024. I haven't really done an update on the garden for quite a while, and it's because it's been a really cold and wet winter and spring, and so everything has just taken that little bit longer to come out and start to grow. However, last weekend we started to clear away the weeds and just clear it up and see what we're working with. So I thought I would take you around and show you So one of the more successful parts of the garden is what we call euphemistically the copse, and this is really nice. It's started to bush out and mature really nicely. So this is the third year really, and we've obviously got some trees, but we've also got a nice set of ground cover, and it's really starting to mature now. And across here you'll start to see the lovely geraniums are starting to take a hold, and we've also got a couple of verbena that are starting to grow. But this time last year these would have been far further developed, but it's just been so cold and wet. But we've also got some bluebells that have come out. We actually self-planted these last year, and they're just starting to really get to grips with the area and really like it. And then we obviously have I think it's the dogwood, and some more bluebells here. And then in behind we have, just below here, you can start to see it, is some wild garlic. And that, I love the smell of wild garlic whenever I'm out for walks, so we're just hoping that's going to self-seed over time and start to give us more colour and cover in spring. So one of the casualties of winter, and probably not just winter, just in general, has been our tree here. Sadly, it's given up the ghost, so we are actually, it's only 2 years old, we're going to dig it out and plant a new tree, probably a type of rowan, and that'll probably happen in the next couple of weeks. We're just waiting for the plant to be, the tree to be ordered and delivered. But the other two trees have done really well, and what we've also done, although there's still stakes in the ground, we have removed the supports on the stake. So you can see here where one of the stakes was holding the tree. This is the cherry tree, so you can actually start to see that this part here was where it's rubbing and holding. You're meant to really leave a tree staked for 2 years, just to allow the roots to get a real grip in the ground and to strengthen against stormy winds. And I have to say, in the winter, this part does take a battering from the wind, so we definitely left it until now. But we've actually cut away the ties, and eventually we'll remove the stakes. The rowan tree at the back here is the same sort of thing. You'll see if I plant it around. Again, we've got the same sort of area here. What we just have to be careful of is that this doesn't rub against the stake too much, but it looks to be okay. The other casualty we've had is in the cottage garden. You can see we've still got catmint along the edges of the path here, but if we actually swing round here, we used to have catmint all the way along here, and there's just none. It's bare. Now, a couple of reasons are probably for it. The first one might be just the winter, long hard winter with too much rain. It might have just killed off. The other factor we had is we did have a lot of scaffolding here when we put in our solar panels on the house and the garage. So for a week this was flattened, and it may very well have been that they just couldn't cope with it. Having said that, we've definitely lost some other plants in here. It's looking quite bare compared to what we would normally see. Now, part of that will be because it's a later growth cycle this year, because spring is a little bit later, but I think we do need to replace some of the gaps. But to be honest, we just need to give it a bit of time to see what comes through. Our roses and behind it our hedge are really coming along nicely. We just need to give this a trim at some point, but just to tidy it up. But these climbing roses here, they've been a bit slow to climb, but they're starting to get some height and bushing out now, which is great. And on the other side again, our roses here, they're just starting to come out. What we're also finding is that some things I've just decided, you know, I'm just going to flower now because I've been waiting too long. But it's looking nice overall. Our Fatsia here did get slightly damaged by the work that was being done. I think one of the workmen's accidentally fell over and broke part of our Fatsia. So it's looking a little bit less than normal, but it's actually come back to health and it'll regrow. So if we come along to where the fountain is and then swing along, you'll then see the other big loss we've had this year. And if you remember from the previous videos, this was very healthy green box plant. And we've got a second one along here and it's now identically dead. And this is from box blight. So we are actually going to dig these out in the next few weeks and replace them with small Hebes. To be honest, speaking to other people where I live, they've had the same problems. What is really good to see is the turf again. It's interesting actually, obviously every year as things start to settle down, we start to see what plants thrive and what plants don't thrive in the turf. But as you can start to see, we've got a bit of colour coming through with the pinks and the blues. We did have a lovely cherry blossom on the miniature cherry up here, but that's obviously been and gone. And to the side here, just if you follow the brick wall along, that's the pathway that we've had. We've actually had a fox come in a lot more now. Obviously he quite likes to drink from the pond, and we get the odd badger still coming in as well. But yeah, it's interesting to see what pathways they use, but they quite happily barge their way through between the clematis and the hedge and come in that way, so that's fine. I'm quite happy with that. If I swing round, you get to see that the turf now, this has only really come on in the last 2-3 weeks. It was quite sad looking for a while, but we have also placed some poppy seeds from around the garden in the turf. We had some last year, but we're hoping to get a few more this year, so we sent some of the seeds into the turf, so we'll see if they take and if they survive. But it's starting to get established again now. And then if we swing across here, you can see we did have some daffodils. We just tied up the leaves to let the goodness go back to the bulbs. The oxeye daisies are starting to show, and obviously give it a couple of more weeks, we'll start to see them shooting up. But what's really nice is our Banksia roses. So as you can see, they're starting to grow, but also they're in full bloom at the moment, just coming out, and they look stunning. And hopefully in the next few years it will really fill the area. As you can see, it's nice. So one of the things we have done, we tend to plant daffodils for the early spring in some pots, but then what we'll do is we'll also then have tulips. So the daffodils have been and gone, but the tulips then take over. Now they're getting towards the end of flowering, probably another week or two they'll probably start to die off, and then what we tend to do is to put some cosmos in there in a few weeks time, and that just adds some height and colour, and they're a bit of a punchy plant. They punch above their weight, which is great to see. You can see behind again on this side near the pond, got a bit of splash of red with the GMs that were plug plants year before last. They just seem to have settled in, and everything's just looking that bit more mature in the garden. And the irises are starting to develop their flower heads that are going to flower quite soon. My neighbour who gave me these irises the last year, year before, hers at the front of her house, which are in full sun at the minute, are already fully flowering, but hers in the back, like mine, are just waiting to come out. They don't get quite as much sun this early on. And then if we swing round, again you can start to see the green growth starting to develop, the Bridge of Jeopardy. I would say the pond's doing quite well, it's looking quite nice. Again, I need to give it time to see what we've lost. I think we've lost 1 or 2 plants, partly because of pigeons that quite happily knock over plants and then they die, but also just I think it's a hard winter and some of the plants are not as happy as others. Some are thriving, some aren't. The marsh marigolds have been fantastic. They're just getting towards the end of their flowering though, but the blue and yellow flag irises, which are over there, will be coming out soon. The plants here, the sarcococca, etc., are looking lovely, and they're really matured. We actually had to cut this back quite significantly because it's really growing quite well now. And then if you start looking at the clematis and the roses that we've got, they're starting to grow up and over the archways. So hopefully another good year or two of growing and it'll be really how we want it, which is sort of a nice sort of green archway with roses and clematis flowering on it and giving that lovely fragrance as you walk through. So then at the back of the pond we have some more growth. I think the real success here, other than the roses that we're feeding through and along, which are doing really well, is the ivy. That's really come on strong and it's starting to get established beautifully now. And it's, as you can see, starting to grow up towards the top of the fence. So give it another couple of years, that's going to look amazing. It already looks good. And then here we have the hawthorn tree. It's just about to come out into flower and bloom. You can see here, they're nearly there. Interestingly enough, because it's sort of a hedge plant, we've had to feather the trunk further down because obviously it tries to regrow because it's like a hedge. So just to keep it clean and tidy, but to encourage the growth up above, just feather the trunk so there's no growth too low down. So as you can see, there's the first growth that we've allowed, and then it's doing great. So hopefully in another couple of weeks it'll be in full blossom. And in the bedding area, we've had this hebe we've had to absolutely attack because it's been a bit of a monster. However, we need to allow the rosemary a chance to thrive as well. It's doing really well. Another GM self-seeded, which is lovely. The damson's looking a bit happier. And actually what's looking really happy is the lavender. So the last couple of years it's been okay, but this year I'd say it's at its best. Behind we've got this amazing wallflower that's been doing great for the last 2-3 years. It's pumped out an awful lot of colour and an awful lot of flowers. However, you can see underneath it's starting to get quite woody, and these plants tend to last between 3 and 5 years before you have to replace them. And that will depend on how many flowers you're getting. This has given an awful lot of flowering throughout the whole year. So as a result, it's obviously nearly spent. So what we'll be doing, we'll be digging this out later on this year and planting fresh. Probably in the next few weeks we'll do that. And then as you go further along, the rosemary this side is doing great. And what I'm really pleased about, got a little bit of self-seeded borage here. I do love borage. If you like your gin and tonic, put a bit of borage flower into an ice cube, let it set, and it adds a nice bit of colour. But obviously it's also great for the insects. And we have some more self-seeding borage this year coming through, and it's quite early. Last year it came a lot later, but I think they like the conditions. They're finding where they're happy and where they can grow. This is our other pot that we have some ivy in, overflowing the pot. A nice centerpiece in the winter, but then obviously the daffs have been and gone, and now we've got the tulips in here. And then as we come further up, I think it's the hydrangea, this one. This has gone over, just gone over, but it was looking lovely. And then our pots of tulips, they've done well, again close to finishing. And then we come to the hot garden. This has been a struggle. Some things thrive here, but a lot don't. And again, we've had casualties here. But this, I think, might be because of, well, basically the climate change. I think a lot of plants are struggling with the continual moisture and rain, or then suddenly drought and high heat. So certain things will survive, but you'll see there's quite a lot of gaps here, and that's because we've had quite a lot of losses. I have to say that this has been really nice, this one. This just packs a punch. That was from a little plug plant we popped in there last year. Seems to really like where it is, which is great. And then as you swing along and to the side, we've left a teasel here, so that's self-seeded. We are going to put a plant in here. We'll try for a 3rd year running to see if we can get a plant that can survive in this corner. And then we planted this wallflower here to try and fill a gap from a previous death. Honestly, we're not that bad at gardening. We're not that terrible, but it's just the conditions have been a challenge. And then obviously we've got some cosmea in the corner starting to come up in green shoots. and we'll see what comes of it. So I hope you enjoyed the quick tour of the garden. As I said, we're learning every year what does and doesn't work, and we'll understand with the conditions what we think looks good, but also what does work. And as I said, some of it we just let it self-seed, because if it self-seeds, chances are it knows it's a good place to grow. So I will give another update in the next few weeks.